My mother didn't just ruin my wedding, she made sure it became a crime scene. 200 guests watched in dead silence as her hand cracked across my face right at the altar. My white veil flew back, and her voice boomed through the chapel speakers. "And oh, daughter of mine, where's that?" Everyone thought she lost her mind over my unconventional blush pink dress. The whispers started immediately, framing her as a narcissistic monster and me as her tragic victim. But as security hauled her out, she locked eyes with my father and screamed, "Tell her what that dress is made of, David, or I swear to God, I'll let the judge do it." That slap wasn't about control, fashion, or wedding etiquette. It was a desperate attempt to stop a ceremony built on a 20-year lie, a secret so dark that when she finally confessed it under oath in court, it changed everything. My name is Clara. I'm 28 years old, and up until my wedding day, I believed I had my entire life mapped out with complete clarity. Standing at the end of the aisle in front of 200 gasping guests, my cheek burning from the force of my mother's hand, that illusion completely shattered. The sting wasn't just physical, it was the humiliating echo of her voice reverberating through the chapel speakers. Everyone thought Eleanor had finally snapped over something trivial. I was wearing a stunning vintage blush pink silk dress, a gift from my father, David, who claimed it was a cherished heirloom worn by my late grandmother. To the room, my mother looked like a control freak losing her mind over an unconventional dress choice. But as security pinned her arms behind her back, the sheer panic in her eyes told a terrifyingly different story. She wasn't angry. She was terrified. She locked eyes with my father, who stood in the front row with a perfectly composed, sympathetic expression, and screamed a warning that froze the blood in my veins. That dress wasn't an innocent family token. It was the catalyst for a nightmare 20 years in the making. Growing up, my relationship with my mother was defined by an invisible wall. Eleanor was never the warm, affectionate mom who baked cookies or offered comforting hugs. She was reserved, intensely cautious, and hyperprotective. She guarded our small family fiercely, constantly keeping me at a distance from my father's wealthy, elite relatives. As a kid, I resented her for it. I couldn't understand why she always seemed so tense whenever my father, David, was around. David was the exact opposite, charismatic, generous, and overwhelmingly affectionate. He showered me with lavish gifts, funded my every dream, and played the hero in my eyes. Whenever my mother tried to enforce strict boundaries or question his spending, David would gently smile, roll his eyes at me, and whisper, "Your mother just worries too much, sweetheart." I eagerly took his side every single time. I viewed my mother as a cold, controlling killjoy who wanted to restrict my happiness, while my father was my ultimate protector. I spent 28 years completely blind to the subtle, chilling red flags hidden beneath my father's charming smile. The morning of the wedding, the air in the bridal suite was thick with nervous excitement, until my mother walked in. I was standing in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing down the delicate, vintage blush pink silk. When Eleanor saw me, the color drained completely from her face. She dropped her purse, stumbling backward against the doorframe, gasping for air as if she'd just seen a ghost. Her hands shook violently as she rushed over, grabbing my shoulders with frantic strength. "Clara, please listen to me," she pleaded, her eyes wide with unadulterated panic. "You cannot wear this. Take it off right now. I will buy you any gown in the city. Just take it off." I was furious. I shoved her hands away, convinced this was just her final, desperate attempt to control my big day and ruin my happiness. I accused her of being jealous and cold, refusing to listen to a single word. 2 hours later, as I stepped onto the altar, her terror exploded into the slap that shattered my entire world. In the agonizing days after the wedding, my father and my new husband urged me to press charges. David was relentless, insisting that Eleanor was mentally unstable and a danger to my safety. Heartbroken and deeply humiliated, I filed for a protective order. While preparing the paperwork, I needed my official birth certificate and old family records. Since my father was handling the legal strategy, I went to his home office while he was out. Searching through his mahogany desk, I noticed a small silver key taped underneath the bottom drawer. It fit a heavy metal fireproof box tucked inside his closet. I expected to find stock certificates or land deeds. Instead, the box contained a faded leather journal, a stack of certified mail receipts, and a yellowed newspaper clipping from 25 years ago. The headline made my breath catch in my throat. Local heiress vanishes days before high-profile wedding. Folded beneath the article was a photo of a young, radiant woman smiling alongside a younger version of my father. She was wearing the exact same custom blush pink silk dress I had worn down the aisle. 2 weeks later, we were standing in a packed courtroom for the protective order hearing. My father sat beside me, his arm draped protectively over my shoulder, playing the part of the grieving, supportive parent to perfection. My mother looked frail at the defense table, but her eyes were steady. When she took the witness stand, my father's lawyer expected a tearful apology. Instead, my mother's attorney submitted a sealed evidence packet to the judge. When asked why she committed battery at a holy altar, Eleanor looked directly at me, her voice ringing out clear and unwavering. Under oath, she confessed that the blush pink gown wasn't an heirloom from my grandmother. It had belonged to Victoria Vance, my father's first fiancée, who had mysteriously disappeared 25 years ago, just weeks before their planned nuptials. Eleanor revealed that David had kept Victoria's entire wardrobe locked away for decades. He hadn't just gifted me a dress, he had dressed his daughter in the exact garment worn by a missing woman whose fortune had mysteriously funded his first major business venture right after she vanished. The entire courtroom went dead silent. As my mother continued her testimony, the horrifying truth unfurled like a nightmare. She explained that she had discovered the secret room in my father's estate decades ago, along with Victoria's personal journals and bank records. Eleanor had stayed with David out of pure, paralyzing fear, terrified of what he might do to her, and even more terrified of leaving me alone in his care. When my father presented me with that dress, he knew precisely what he was doing. It wasn't a sweet gesture. It was a sick, calculated message to Eleanor. He was testing her silence, daring her to speak up and ruin her daughter's wedding, or stay quiet and watch her daughter walk down the aisle wearing the ghost of his past. He had deliberately framed her as the unhinged, controlling villain while positioning himself as the savior. The courtroom was frozen as my mother's lawyer produced forensic photos comparing the unique, hand-embroidered floral trim on the dress with old high society magazine features of Victoria Vance. Every single detail matched. The man I had idolized my entire life hadn't just lied. He had turned my wedding into a cruel psychological game. The judge immediately ordered a freeze on my father's assets and opened a cold case investigation into Victoria Vance's disappearance. My father tried to grab my arm as he left the courtroom, but I pulled away, seeing him clearly for the first time in my life. I dropped the restraining order that afternoon. My mother and I sat in her living room, weeping and holding each other as 28 years of walls finally crumbled between us. She had sacrificed her own peace, her reputation, and her sanity to keep me safe from a monster hiding in plain sight. Today, my husband and I are rebuilding our lives alongside my mother. The blush pink dress was handed over to state police evidence. I lost the father I thought I knew, but I gained something far more precious, the unconditional love of a mother who is willing to lose everything just to save me.